Welcome to my tutorial for Silpheed for the PS2. And this game is actually quite good. I own this game. I got it back, when the PS2 was still relevant. I got the game used and for pretty cheap. And back then I wasn't nearly as, I guess you could say, stubborn and persistent with trying to beat games. I mean, I always enjoyed, building my kill list, as I call it, my games beaten list, but I wasn't as aggressive with it back then. So I also, since then have developed a lot more skill and patience with these type of games, since that was a long time ago. So I thought it would be cool to revisit this one and beat it. And it was actually a very good game. I appreciated it more now since I was able to play through it. I remember I got stuck on a part that really wasn't that bad when I played it again. I mean, it took me a few tries, but it wasn't really anything too difficult. This game ended up taking me only about 3 hours to beat, so it wasn't too bad. There was really only two parts that took me a while, over an hour each, but most of the rest of the game only took about an hour, so it really wasn't too bad. So this is on normal, and I recommend setting your shields to 10, which is the max, which basically means you can take 10 hits. You'll notice in the upper right corner your shield shows 5 little increments up in the upper right. Those are how many hits you can take. When you get hit, one of those will disappear. And there's 2 columns of those. So it's basically like 2 lives, except you never actually see, you don't lose a life visibly. But when your first row of 5 shields disappears, a second screen of 5 shields will come up since you have a total of 10 hits you can take. And you'll see that indicated in the upper right. There's a little small icon that's lit up that shows that there's an extra shield in reserve. So that's how you can tell. But if you do lose all 10 of your hits, then you will just start the stage over. You have unlimited continues, so you can always start the stage over. And the game starts out quite easy for these type of games, especially with the amount of hits that you can take. So I don't have a lot of refined strategies for the early parts of the game, but for the harder parts of the game, I had to replay them quite a bit, so I pulled some pretty major bullshit, and I learned how to really exploit the game, which I think will make it a lot easier to complete for those who haven't beaten the game yet. So I think it'll be useful. That's why I decided to do a tutorial, because I thought I had some useful exploits and things that I found that would be pretty cool to showcase and explain. Some of these games, when they're too easy, I won't do a tutorial because there's really not much that I can go into detail about. And, most of these games are just about memorization and just learning the levels. But for this, I think there's going to be some cool strategies that players will find useful. Now, you'll see there's a refuel mid-stage. And what that does, it gives you 4 pieces of health back. So if you're missing 4 of your armor pieces, you'll get them back. And it'll even traverse through, to the next armor screen. So, if you already depleted a full 5 and you wasted one of your essentially lives, even though it doesn't show as a life, you'll get that back. It'll carry over into the next little armor indicator. So it all carries over either way. So if you took any kind of damage, the refuel is useful to give you some of your health back. And you can also switch out your weapons again, which for some levels I would like different loadouts for different parts of the stages. But of course, right now the game is so basic and easy for this type of game that it really didn't matter too much. I went with the Vulcans, the double Vulcans. It's like a V Vulcan or some shit. And what that does is it's a kind of a, they're diagonal shots basically. And I have it on my left and right, the same weapon on both sides. So what that means is that I don't have a middle fire. I can't shoot in the middle, but I just, adapt to it by moving over to the side slightly when I want to hit something. And that's going to be a theme. It's good to get used to this diagonal fire because for the strategies that I'm going to be showing, it's going to involve the napalm weapon, which I don't really see being used heavily in videos like I used it. I like using a double napalm setup, which means that the napalm is the most powerful weapon in the game. So for this, you just, avoid these bullets, which is easy to do. Stay in the gap and just fire from a diagonal like you see me doing here with the weapons I'm using. It's very easy. It does change a little bit as you get farther in, but you can see there's not much to explain here. Just avoid the orbs. Try not to get hit too much. But, the napalm is the most powerful weapon in the game. And I actually didn't even experiment with a lot of the later weapons because I read up on what the weapons did. And based on that information I read in the game fac, I decided I really didn't need to fuck around with any other weapons. So the only two weapons that I like to use once I get them is the optic laser and the napalm. So once you get those, I don't suggest any other loadout. Now you can mix and match, have one optic laser with one napalm if you want. What you set up in the weapons menu is your left and right weapons. Now you can fire them individually with a button for each, or you can do what I do and just fire, press the single button method, which you press one button, it fires both at the same time. I don't see a reason to fire the weapons individually. I don't know why that's there. Now, I have seen somebody claim that if you press the left and right buttons at a different time and hold them down at a different kind of time, you'll get a steadier stream of bullets. But I tested it, and I didn't notice that. So it's probably, maybe there is something to that, but I never noticed it. So, I can't suggest that. But you can experiment with that. But I say just hold down the main button that fires both. I really found no reason to fire them individually. So at this point, we get the optics laser and the napalm bombs, which are the only weapons you need in the game. So now, remember, I wasn't as proficient with these weapons at this stage, so I didn't know all the techniques. If I would have known the game better, I probably would have been using dual napalms from the beginning. I think I did this time. Also, remember, what happened was I had to replay the first several stages over again because I lost footage of the recording. So, that replayed footage is spliced into this playthrough video. So just remember that wasn't my first time playing the first 3 stages or so. I had to redo the first 3 stages, I believe it was. Something like that. The first 22 minutes I had to redo. So that's actually after I had some experience with the game. So I think I did better than I probably did initially. So there is some refinement with that, but it wasn't intentional. It's because this fucking recording device, the AverMedia LGP, can, it's great. I've recorded probably over 1,000 games or close to it on this thing, but actual playthroughs. But the problem is that sometimes it just drops recordings randomly, especially if you try to record over an hour. You have a risk of losing at that point. You may lose the whole recording. So for this, just kind of stay with the napalm. I recommend double napalm now that you have it, meaning napalm on your left and right. And like I said, this is not a strategy that people are using in videos, really. So I thought it was unique. It's not the same shit that you see on every video. So the napalm really fucking destroys shit. When you single napalm is good if you have napalm on one of your sides, but the napalm will fire in both directions, even if you only have one on your right side or left side. But if you have 2 napalms, you do double the damage. And the thing with the napalms is they only fire at a diagonal, just like those Vulcan guns that I had earlier. But, as long as you get used to, offsetting yourself a little bit to the side and fighting enemies that way and point blanking them by getting right up on some of the bosses, you'll fucking destroy bosses before they can even get their attacks out for very long. So I found you can really exploit the game with this weapon loadout. Just, napalm on both sides, basically. You see me getting right up on these enemies and bosses. Now, sometimes I'll take a hit, but I kill them very quickly. And you're going to see a lot of that. So, the optic lasers are also very good. You can have dual optic lasers, which is an interesting setup, but then you don't have any fire off to your side, so you got to just line up perfectly straight with everything since they're lasers. It makes it a little harder to line up with certain things, but they do good damage. They do a lot of damage, but not nearly as much damage as the napalms. So, honestly, I would rather have to, adjust to firing off to my side a little bit for the extra power than firing straight ahead. That was my logic. I could easily adapt to having to offset my ship a little bit. Just angle things a little bit. Plus, the napalm has a decent little explosion radius, so it's not bad. You're not going to be able to shoot directly in front of you, but you'll get used to that. Once you learn your positioning on the levels, you can actually spawn kill a lot of enemies as they're spawning into the map by just parking your ship in a certain part of the screen. And you're going to see that later in the later stages when I really had to refine my gameplay. So I think you're going to learn a lot from that just by seeing the video, and it should give you an advantage when you go into the game. Now, I didn't realize at this point, those background buildings, it hit me twice because you can actually hit into that. Now, I know it does look like something that you could hit into, but keep in mind this game has a lot of shit that looks like that, and it usually doesn't hurt you. It's usually just background decoration. So, I wasn't sure. One way to test it sometimes is to fire into it with your gun and see if the gun, if the bullets are hitting it, but I didn't really test it too well. So don't hit into those. But yeah, the optic laser, it can be very good, but it's not nearly as good. If you learn to use this napalm technique with dual napalm, you'll really destroy shit. Now, another loadout option that's pretty good is one optic laser and one napalm. That's a pretty good setup, too, because it gives you that straight firing option, and you still get damage with the napalm. But when it came down to it, see how I'm killing all these spawns with the napalm by positioning my ship a certain way? That's a big part of using napalm, but it's really positioning. But the one thing I found was that I was able to do way better and pull so much more bullshit, especially on bosses with the napalm. And killing mid-boss type enemies and harder enemies that take more shots would die very fast with napalm. So I recommend ditching the lasers completely for the entire game and just using the napalm setup for the rest of the stages. I think that's the best way to go. It may take a little bit of learning to get used to the positioning, but once you get it down, you're not going to take as much damage because if you get your positioning right, you can take shit out so much faster. You're not going to have to dance around with bosses and dodge patterns for a very long time like you normally would. Now keep in mind, certain bullets, usually blue bullets, can be destroyed by your guns. At least the lasers destroy bullets, and I believe the napalm clears out the blue bullets as well. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it does. So at this point, you get a refuel, but you see what I've been doing with the napalm is getting it very close and channeling all that napalm into the larger enemies to kill them fast. Again, I choose double napalm again, left and right napalm. And that's going to be a theme now pretty much for the rest of the game. Once I discovered this, I stuck to it mostly. Now for this playthrough, I edited out all the lost continues, since you have unlimited continues. So you're just seeing me start fresh from each stage. For the most part, some of the stages I was able to beat several stages in a row without continuing early on in the game. I beat a good amount of stages before I had to continue. It was very easy initially. I mean, most shooters you'll die in one hit, but in this game, you can take 10 hits, so that's pretty damn forgiving. But there are still some hard stages. There's 2 stages that are quite difficult. That took me over an hour each. This boss is pretty easy with this napalm setup. Because no matter how the boss circles around you, it's going to get hit a lot. See, you can take out the head really quick. And when it tries to circle around you, you're constantly hitting it with the napalm since you have, multi-directional firing going on. The napalm even fires behind you, which can be somewhat useful, but enemies don't usually come up from behind you. But with that snake, if you get in the middle of it, then you can still hit it from your rear fire since it curls around your entire ship. So yeah, as far as dodging enemy fire, a lot of that stuff is memorization because it's the same bullet patterns and enemies every time pretty much. So that's your typical memorization that you expect in these kind of shooters from just trial and error and practicing. Now I recommend using save and load states always when playing these kind of games to practice specific parts. So whenever I had trouble with a boss, I would practice it with save and load states. Now there was never a specific section of a stage that was so hard that I felt I needed to practice it with save and load states. I just got my practice naturally by having to replay the level from failing. But when it came to some of the harder bosses, I would make a save on the boss and just practice it for a while, get used to its patterns. And, of course, my main focus is always trying to learn how to pull as much bullshit as possible and kill the boss very fast. So I was experimenting with point-blanking the bosses and doing things like positioning tricks to not, to basically be able to either absorb damage and survive that way, like take hits and damage the boss at the same time, which is usually less effective. But in this game, you can do that because you can take so many hits. But you have to then get to the boss with a good amount of health to pull that off, so it's riskier. So you got to know how much health you have to play with if you're going to do a damage-absorbing type of technique. But most of the time, I was trying to find safe positions where I could point-blank the boss and not take damage, and I found quite a few of them. And those are going to be huge in beating the game a lot easier. When you see this video, you're going to learn some useful stuff for the hardest parts. So this guy is very easy with the dual napalm setup. Just, offset yourself to the side a little bit and just keep getting in those hits. Stay close to him. If you stay close enough to him, I think he'll even block you from getting hit by some of those pillars because his body will slam into them instead of you slamming into them. Because I believe you can hit into those. That's the main danger. But just get close to him and point blank his ass. Stay on him with the napalm. Now, prior to that, it's very easy if you do that. You see, it fucking destroys this guy. Now, before that, there were some fire streams. To deal with those, I stayed mostly on the bottom right corner for most of the fire streams, and I used my napalm to try to destroy the fire streams as they came at me from diagonal angles. So I tried to have them approach me from a diagonal or from the side, and I tried to take them out that way with the napalm. It's a little bit of positioning, and I didn't do it perfectly at all, so there's room for error. But try to stay in a corner and just kind of protect the corner of the screen for most of it. You may have to move out of the corner when the streams start getting aggressively towards they start spawning in the corner. Then you want to move out of there. So now I still may have been experimenting with weapon loadouts at this point, but it looks like not. It looks like I'm going for napalm at this point. I guess I already discovered how much I really love that setup. I'm also going to post up a review of this game, so I'm going to go into all detail about all my thoughts on the game. But as I've said, I think it's quite a good game. I would say it's more in the intermediate range of games as far as difficulty is concerned. So if you're more new to shooters, this is going to be more forgiving, but it's still a hard game. If you're still new to shooters, it can be tough. I'm sure it'll still give players trouble who are newer to shooters or intermediates can still have trouble with it. But if you've played a decent amount of these games, I don't think the game will give you a lot of trouble if you practice specific sections. You do want to practice bosses and things like that give you trouble. So I would say this is a good game for more beginner players. It's not really a beginner game, but I just know when I was a fucking beginner, when I first started playing games, I was playing, games like NES games, which were already extreme, and that's just how, you got better over time. And I didn't get better until I was an adult when it came to games, really. But, it's kind of like trial by fire. So I'm not against the idea of playing hard games when you're, not at a certain skill level. I believe it makes you a better player. But, if you're looking to do it more gradually, this is not a bad game for like an intermediate type of player. There are much easier shooters, of course. So yeah, for this part, not much to explain. You see I'm using the same technique of kind of point blanking the larger enemies. So I try to get on an angle and just get all my napalm in. I try to take out shit as fast as I can so I don't have to deal with all the bullets. A common tactic in shooters is to try to clear out the screen fast and clear out the spawns fast as they come. So that you can kind of just, you don't have to deal with the bullets and all that shit. Makes the games way easier when you play aggressively like that. And this, of course, applies to many, many shooters. It's a common thing to do with these games. Try to avoid these lasers if you can kind of circle around. But while you're doing that, try to take these things out with that side fire. You can take a few hits here and there with all the damage you're allowed to take. It's not really a big deal if you take a few hits here and there. So now you get your refuel, so you get 4 pieces of health back. And if for some reason you want to switch out your weapons, you can do so, but I don't see why you would want to get rid of the napalms. But of course, a lot of players don't use this strategy, and there may be a reason for that. So, if you're not comfortable with that, you don't have to use them. But for my strategies, the napalm is essential. And at least it shows something a little different than the usual playthroughs of this game. I think if I was going to, if I was into speedrunning, I rarely ever do speedruns. I've done a few casual ones, but if I was, I think napalm would be the speedrun weapon for this game because it really eliminates shit quick if you get your positioning right. So I'm guessing that would be the fastest way to beat the game. Now, of course, I like using it just because it's so fucking efficient and it kills shit so fast when you get your... you do have to get in close and take more risks with it, but I think it's worth it. Now, this was a little dangerous. I took some damage getting in this close and circling around here, but as long as you get in enough napalm, it won't take too long to take this guy out. You don't want that fight to go on for too long because he starts to do more aggressive patterns. And the little bullet hell that he does can be a little tricky, that you saw there. But it's not too hard for these kind of games, but it can be a little tricky if it goes on for a while. You can take that guy out very, very quickly by doing the point-blank napalm little maneuver. Same thing with these guys. Prioritize the large crabs when they show up, but try to get your side fire to also take out the flying guys. So you get a little 2-for-1 bonus. And try to stay just out of range to the side of the crab guys' little bullets they shoot out so you don't get hit by those. You want to stay just to the side where their bullets don't, out of the line of fire, basically, So now when these things appear on this rail, just try to shoot them immediately as they appear for this first wave. And when more of them start to come out, I would say just focus on one rail and just dodge the rest. But when there's only one rail to deal with, it's very easy. You just, with the napalm, they'll die as soon as they appear. It just makes parts a lot easier because all you have to do is just get certain positioning down and memorize some positions. I mean, a lot of times you can just improvise in the moment. There's not really a lot of memorization in some of the easier stages. But yeah, for this part, take out maybe one of the rails of enemies and just dodge the rest. Eventually they go away, so you don't have to kill them. And you can't destroy the dispensers of enemies. So now this boss was one of the harder bosses that gave me trouble when I owned the game. I never got past this part, but it's really not that bad. I'm going to recommend using the double napalms yet again and getting in close to the boss. Now, of course, you can only hit it when it exposes its side. There's a weak, fleshy little enemy in the side of the wheel. You can't hit the wheel head on, but you can hit it in the side. So I try to get up on the sides of it and get that napalm in. Especially when it does this. This is the perfect time to damage it when it lines up like that. But try to get in close and get your napalm in. It's not the easiest thing to reach, but as long as you have some decent health and you kind of move with it and try to dodge best you can, keeping close to it, you should be able to take it out pretty fast. Normally that can be a drawn out and quite a difficult boss fight, but you can see it's not too bad with that strategy. I didn't refine this strategy because, this boss didn't take me too long to beat. I only had to retry the stage a few times, and I don't know if I practiced that boss with any isolated save states, so it really wasn't too clean. But you'll see a little bit of a better performance than some of the harder parts later on. Though I do take damage. I didn't do no damage runs on the bosses or anything to refine the tutorial like I have with some tutorials that I've done. But I felt like it was good enough to add commentary to this playthrough. So again, I ignore all the other weapons and I stick with the napalm. Now this level's very short, and I found this to be one of the easier levels by this point, at least for me. Because it's just like a boss rush, basically, is all it really is, mainly. It's mainly just a boss rush or, like larger types of enemies, but mainly bosses. And you'll really fucking destroy them with the double napalm. See, you get right in the middle here, take those two guys out immediately. You don't even take any damage. So there's some great positioning. And I found these right away because I don't think I had to replay this stage, so this was all improvised. It was very easy to do. Again, I get in real close to the boss. I just try to get in as many close range shots as I can, stay close as long as I can. I try not to get far off from the bosses when possible. Because the closer you are, the more damage you seem to channel into the boss. So you want to try to stay close and do that point blank shit as much as possible. So that kills this guy real fast. Not much of a fight. And these are all bosses you fought before, so the strategies are going to be the same. Unless you didn't have napalm when you encountered some of these bosses, then that changes things up. But it usually comes down to just getting your positioning right to where you can point blank the bosses. So in here, initially, I stay in the middle and get a lot of damage in on these two planes. And then I start finishing them off by taking them out one at a time with the point blanking method. I think I got hit once, the first time I did that. Very easy. And I think all the stages have a refueling moment at some point in the stage, so it may be after the snake. Snake is very easy with the dual napalm yet again. Just let him circle around you, and he's going to get wrecked by just circling around, hitting into the to your bullet streams. Now, if you try the lasers, you can see that all this takes much longer with the dual lasers, even though it's an effective weapon that it fires straight ahead. It's maybe easier to use, but I don't think it's worth it. So for this guy, yet again, I just stay really close, try to point blank him, try to move with him and switch sides as needed, but just get like a stream into him at all times. Now he does his little bullet hell arrangement, which is a little tricky. You may take a hit, but I mean overall, even if you take a little damage, it's not too bad. I think you get a refueling station at some point as well. So far I've only gotten hit 3 times, so it hasn't been too bad. And I think the refueling gives you 4 health back. Though I don't remember this stage that well because it was a quick kill. But yeah, here's the refuel. So I actually get more health back than what I lost. So that puts me at full health. So again, I go with the dual napalms as always from this point. Once you get those, there's really no reason to use anything else. I'm not sure why other playthroughs didn't exploit that, but once I realized how useful it was, I stuck with it. So here the refueling ship turns into an enemy. But, try to destroy the bottom legs first, the 2 legs on the left and right, by just getting in between them and having your napalm just decimate them. And then after that, all you got to do is kind of stay close to the side of the boss, try to dodge what you can. If it gets too close to one side of the screen, then move to the opposite side of the screen and continue your point-blank assault. Very easy boss. I think I got hit once, and that was my first time playing that boss. I guess, no, now I started getting hit. This part's a little tricky. I was getting hit a lot by this. I forgot that he has another form. But eventually he will stop doing that shit, and you can finish him off very easily. So, even if you do take damage from that, you should have enough health left over. If you're using these techniques, you shouldn't be getting hit a lot on the other bosses. So you should pretty much get here with full health, or close to it. So you get some new weapons yet again that I didn't even experiment with. After reading about them, they just didn't seem like they could compete with the napalm. Yeah, so again, same weapon loadout for the rest of the game. Now, this is one of the hardest stages in the game. This was a stage that took me over an hour to beat. So this is a tough stage. I recommend practicing sections of this stage that give you trouble. Now, the only parts that I practiced with save states, I believe, were the actual mini-boss and the main boss, if I remember right. I don't even know if I practiced the mini-boss with save states, but it's a good idea to do so, to learn it faster. But you're going to see my technique, and you're not going to have to practice it because I totally destroy the mini-boss with a point-blanking method. You're not going to need much practice for that if you're familiar with getting in close to bosses. So, you do have to be tight with your positioning, but it's easy if you're used to these kind of games. So I usually get hit once on one of these sets of enemies. One of the lasers usually gets me, but try to take out these turrets as soon as they appear with your napalm. Dodge the ones that fire, but try to take them out immediately. The faster you take them out, then you don't have to dodge anything, but I usually fuck it up at least once. I usually get enough health back from the refuel that it pretty much puts me back to full health anyway, so it's not really a big deal. So yeah, now by this point, get up in the upper left corner and the rock won't hit into you, see? I just hang out up there. Now get all the way to your right immediately, or you'll get hit by this laser in the center of the screen. Now stay up in the upright corner and use your napalm to take out the asteroids that come at you. And stay in that upper right corner and the lasers won't touch you for this first phase. Now as soon as you see an enemy come down that fires regular pellet bullets from the top of the screen, center top of the screen, in the middle is when you want to move over to the left side of the screen. That's going to signify the transition where the laser shifts sides. So I didn't catch it. I actually took a hit, but you'll see it. See this enemy in the middle? Now see, if I would have been faster, I could have shifted over to the left side of the screen. That means that when you see that enemy coming down from the middle of the screen firing bullets, it means the lasers are switching sides to the right side, and you need to switch to the left. Now for the center lasers, as long as you're in the left, there's two lasers that come down the center. As long as you're in that left side of the screen taking out the asteroids, you shouldn't get hit by any of that. It's very easy when you know about when you don't have to dodge the lasers once you know where to position yourself on the screen. You stay on that right corner, you see the bullet guy in the middle, and then that's when you switch over to the left side of the left upper corner. And that's all you got to do. It's very easy once you know that. You shouldn't get hit more than twice, even if you're sloppy. So now, with this part, this boss can be tough, but what I do here, I found this little exploit. Get all the way up in this nook up here, right on his burner, and you won't take any damage. And you'll point blank the shit out of him, because the weak spot is that red pulsing part in the middle. So I'm point blanking the fuck out of this guy right now. And he doesn't have a chance really to do shit. So make sure you have double napalm. That's why I recommend double napalm. If you don't, then it takes a lot longer to point blank guys, since you're not putting out as much napalm. So that's why I recommend the double napalm loadout, and fuck all the lasers and shit. Don't even bother with all that. You can see how napalm can really end shit really quick. Like I said, I didn't see people abusing it in any of the videos I saw, because I like watching videos to get ideas for different strategies I'm going to use and see what's coming up. But many times I don't follow that. I just like to see what's coming up and look into different things that I can do. But, some things are just obvious. I mean, when you have a weapon that's that powerful and you can double it up, it just makes sense to try to maximize the damage. So for this part, I do use the lasers, but I don't know that it was the best decision. Actually, no, I take that back. This is the only part where I use the double optic laser setup. So follow this. This is correct. Now for these guys, just dodge. Don't even kill them, because when you kill them, they make a pink bullet hell that comes out of bullets that you have to dodge. Every time they die, they explode into pink bullets. You don't want that. So, start firing here and try to take out these satellites if you can, so they don't fire out as many bullets. You may take a hit. But whenever these red guys appear for now, just ignore them. Dodge the bullets and just weave in and out of the bullets. And eventually they will go away. Now when there's two of them, you may want to take out parts of them to try to lessen the amount of shit they shoot at you, because they shoot guns off of their arms that you can destroy. But I wouldn't be so aggressive to that you kill them, because then they will make a pink bullet hell and very easy to get hit. It's a hard part not to take any damage on all that with those red guys. But now for this part, the idea is to use your lasers to try to focus and stay in the center of these floating guys, these flying ships. You want to take out all their segments, thus destroying them. So try to stay in the center of them and try to weave around the bullets and get back to the center as soon as you can to try to take them out, because you don't want these guys alive too long, because they fire out a lot of hard shit to dodge. So that's why this stage is one of the hardest, is because of this part. So, try to keep centered with them and take them out. You also want to try to take out these flowers that shoot lasers when you can get to them, but mainly focus on those big ships. Try to take them out as soon as possible. There's a reason we're using lasers here, and a big part of it is to take out those floating ships you saw me destroy, and for the final boss of this stage. Not the final boss, but the boss of this stage. The main boss of the stage is very hard, but I found major exploitation to make it really easy. I mean, it's still a little challenging, but it's very easy if you follow my routine that I used. Now for this part, all you got to do is either destroy these things or just avoid them. Either way, it doesn't really matter. Just don't get hit. There's no reason to get hit on those things. Now for the boss, you're going to see one of the most useful tactics in the game, aside from that mini-boss tactic, but there's pretty much an exploit for every form of this boss. So start off by getting really up close. You want to get all the way up in his fucking nostrils, basically. And you're going to see when he fires his bullets, they're going to circle around the ship, see? See how I'm positioned just so the bullets circle around my ship? Means I can't get damaged by that. So you want to be all the way up in his fucking nostrils, but you do have to adjust your position slightly as he moves down. So, adjust as needed. Now for these large white balls that you have to dodge, you only have to dodge the large white ball. You don't have to worry about the sparks that come out of the sides of the white ball. So ignore those and just move to the side a little bit and you'll dodge the white balls. Now you do have to be careful. I did take a hit on the body of the boss itself. Watch out for its arms. Now for this part, I get up in this upper left corner and laser the shit out of him. And I do take some damage sometimes. Sometimes I can do that without getting hit. So now you just have to try to survive. I recommend taking out the arms if possible, but try to fire on the head whenever you can because that's what kills the boss. Killing the arms doesn't kill the boss, but killing the head does. But you may want to destroy the arms like I did here, which is more of an accident. But you may want to do that because it makes the boss much easier because it has less attacks and it can't hit you with its arms. But I usually get really aggressive on that third and final phase with the lasers. I just try to get as many lasers as I can in on the boss. That's the main thing I focus on. And you can see I stay in the upper left corner really aggressively on that boss when it first switches forms. And I usually, sometimes I won't get hit and I can get out of there, but I usually do take at least one hit doing that. But it does so much damage, it's worth it. So that should make that boss, quite easy. It's still not an easy boss, but as long as you pull that off, it makes it way easier. You want to get there with some health, though, because it's easy to take a few hits on the third form. And sometimes you can easily mess up on the other two forms, even though they're easy. You do have to have your positioning pretty strict. So now this is the final stage, and this is up there in difficulty with the previous stage, but it's really close in difficulty. I think the stage before this was a little harder for me. So if you got this far, you should be able to beat the game using my strategies. Now, I like to stay in this center of the screen with the napalm, and it kills the enemies as they spawn. So notice that I'm doing that from the beginning of the stage. I'm spawn killing a lot of the enemies. And that's because I had to replay this, stage a decent amount, and I realized I could do that. Try to take out these satellites immediately as they spawn onto the screen because you don't really want them shooting out bullets. So try to take them out immediately. Whenever one of them fires, it does that spread of bullets. And when you got multiple of them doing it, it's very easy to get hit. It's hard to dodge it when there's like 2 or 3 of them firing bullet storms. So the idea is to try to take them out before they can fire bullets. You can actually take all of them out before they have a chance to fire. I just didn't pull it off there. Now with these laser firing satellites, try to sweep to the screen left and right and take out a broad amount of them so that there's less lasers on screen. That's the best thing I can say. And, if you can adjust your positioning to avoid the lasers, try to do so. But now for these streams of bullets, there's a break at the end of each stream. There's a little break. There's a gap. So try to get in those gaps and zigzag left to right as you can. That's the best thing I can really advise on that. This part's very easy. Take out the middle and right crab as fast as possible with the napalm. You can shoot both at the same time. And then just avoid the leftmost crab and let it leave the screen. Now with these, again, it's the same shit. If you destroy these guys, they fire out tons of red bullets. So it's usually best not to kill them and just ignore them. So you may want to avoid even some of what I did here. I got a little too aggressive. But when possible, try to just dodge their bullets and let them leave. You can stay on the bottom of the screen and usually dodge if you do it right. So now you're going to be fighting some sperms, but they explode. So with your napalm, it's a little tricky because, you have to get kind of close, but it's easy. Just try to take them out and don't get right on them or they'll explode on you, that's all. Now with these guys, you can get up close. Try to take them out before they start preparing their lasers. Get up at the top of the screen and just try to wipe them out quickly. Otherwise, they can cause some bullshit with these lasers. It's better not to let them fire the laser. You can take them all out before they even get a chance to fire the laser, so I recommend trying to do that. But it's easy. Now you have more of these sperms. Those ones don't explode, at least. But I believe this next wave of sperms do explode. So yeah, you want to... This is a more aggressive wave of them, so try to stay near the bottom of the screen and just move to your left or right to try to angle yourself so you don't have any getting close to you. They can easily get in because they have a large explosion radius, so they can be a little dangerous. You want to try to take them out from a little bit of a distance. But nothing too hard on this part. These guys don't explode, but they do aggressively home into your position, so you want to try to lure them into your sides where they get hit by the napalm. So now we have the mini-boss before your refuel. Now I recommend getting point blank to this guy like usual. And, try to dodge try to move around the bullet hell if you can and take out the blue bullets and move around. That's basically what I did, but I'm focusing on trying to stay as close to the boss as I can. to try to get in as many napalms as I can. And if you're aggressive with it, you can take this boss out pretty quick. Now he's going to go into his sword move, but if you did enough damage, you can take him out early on, and he won't get a chance to do much. When he goes into his sword move, just try to keep your distance and keep the napalm going into him. So now you get a refuel. And at this point, I had pretty good health. Now on this next boss, I only get hit once on it, and I recommend doing the same thing. It's worth taking one hit, I think, to kill it fast. So, initially, it's going to be all positioning. This boss is heavily just positioning memorization. That's all it really is. It's actually really easy when you know what to do. So you're going to have this huge ship that comes up. And you don't have to worry about these buildings in the background. I don't believe they can hit you. But yeah, now you have this huge ship, and it's all positioning. There's really no skillful dodging that needs to be done if you do it right. And final boss, there's going to be some bullshit positioning too, but you're going to have to do some more dodging on that. So yeah, as soon as this boss appears, get right up on it and focus on taking out the left and right center cannons. So you'll see me destroying them. So I take out the left and right cannons first to get them out of the way. Now I'm focusing all my napalm on this middle piece. Notice I get right up next to the nose of that middle piece so that his bullets are not even within range of me when he fires that bullet storm. Now after doing that, get all the way to the right, take out this right piece of the ship. Now move back to your left. Now wait for it to shoot that triad of shots, the 3 blue shots, then move all the way to the left, sweep around so the green shots miss you. Now come back to the right. And now you're going to resume getting up right in the middle here. And you're going to take a hit, most likely, but don't worry about it. Just absorb the hit and napalm that shit. And you'll beat this form with only taking 1 damage, which is really not bad. Now, if you want to play more carefully on that last part, you can try dodging shit if you want. But it's hard with the napalm because you can only fire to your left and right with the napalm. It's a huge limitation of the weapon, but like I said, I think it's worth the trade-off for the power it has. Now get up close to this boss, all the way in that upper right corner, and you're going to try to dodge these bullet hell patterns as you stay close to the boss. It is tricky, and I think I kind of fucked it up a little bit here, but I have done it without getting hit before this part. Now, of course, you want to practice all this shit with save and load states, so don't expect to just do it as you see it. It's better to practice it. But you're going to have great methods now that you can practice that are very effective, so it should make it way easier. You don't have to figure it out, on your own. It should cut off some hours of gameplay if you watch this tutorial. So stay on the bottom here and just sweep around to let these homing shots home in on you. They'll home in on your last position and then just kind of curve around in a circular motion. You can dodge them. Now for this, stay down low and try to take out the blue bullets with your napalm. And as you're doing that, try to get some of that napalm to hit into the boss. You want to get kind of like a 2-for-1 going on here with taking out bullets and hitting the boss, if possible. And dodge the orange ones, obviously. Now just get close to this guy. He's going to fire a huge laser, but if you did enough damage, he won't get a chance to do much else. So just try to stay close and finish him off at this point. Even if you take some damage, just try to point blank him at that point when he comes out with the laser. I didn't even learn how to dodge the laser shit that he does because in practice I would kill him before he had a chance to do much with that. So that's what I recommend doing. So yeah, let me know if that helped. It should definitely cut some hours off of your playtime if you're not familiar with the game. And if you have any questions, let me know, and thanks for watching.